Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Denver, we have a problem. Actually, scratch that. Denver has an embarrassment of riches, and that is exactly why training camp this summer is about to turn into an absolute bloodbath. Somewhere inside the Broncos' brand new, ridiculously expensive training facility, there are veterans who have been starters for years quietly sweating bullets, because for the first time in a long time, this roster is so loaded that good players are going to get cut. Not bad players, not fringe guys. Actual, contributing NFL players are about to lose their jobs to rookies, to newcomers, and to a front office that has decided nice to have is no longer good enough. So buckle up, because we are diving into every single roster battle, every contract cliff, every locker room rumor, and one coaching scandal that has the entire league buzzing about Sean Payton's late-night snack habits. Yes, you read that right. Stick around, because by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly why this Broncos roster is one of the most fascinating in football right now. Before we get into the roster carnage, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. And that elephant's name is Sean Payton. A bombshell profile dropped this offseason from one of the most respected investigative sports writers in the country, and it cracked open the curtain on exactly how Payton operates behind closed doors. And folks, it is a lot. We are talking a coach who reportedly survives on minimal sleep, downs soda after soda to keep himself running, and has been known to take medication for reasons nobody has fully explained. Add in some obsessive, almost compulsive tendencies, and you start to get a picture of a brilliant football mind who might also be one bad night's sleep away from a questionable decision. And that is not just gossip, it is relevant. Because that exact combination of exhaustion and stubbornness is being pointed to as the reason the Broncos season ended the way it did. In the biggest moment of the year, with a backup quarterback under center, a defense that had completely shut down the opposing offense, and weather rolling in that Denver's own scouting had flagged in advance, Payton hesitated on a simple fourth and short decision. Instead of trusting the ground game and playing the situation like the numbers demanded, the staff second-guessed itself into a bizarre passing play that blew up in their faces. Was it fatigue? Was it the soda talking? Was it just Payton being Payton? We may never know for sure. But the fingerprints of that indecision are all over one of the most gut-wrenching losses of the Broncos season. Here's the twist, though, and it is a genuinely fascinating one. Payton, by nearly every account, is notoriously stingy when it comes to local Denver media. Beat reporters who cover this team day in and day out get the cold shoulder more often than not. But national reporters chasing a big splashy feature? Payton practically rolls out the red carpet. Why? Because the man loves the spotlight when it is the right kind of spotlight. He wants to be mentioned in the same breath as the biggest names in the business, and when a heavyweight journalist comes calling, Payton opens up in ways he never would for the hometown crew. It is a strange contradiction for a coach who otherwise runs one of the most buttoned-up, secretive organizations in the NFL, but it tells you everything about who Sean Payton really is. He is a coach obsessed with his own legacy, and sometimes that obsession comes with a price. Now here is the silver lining in all of this psychological drama. The Broncos have quietly restructured the coaching staff so that the offensive coordinator, not Payton himself, is calling the plays this season. That means fewer decisions falling squarely on Payton's exhausted shoulders in real time, and honestly, that might be the best in-house adjustment this franchise has made all offseason. Less soda-fueled panic, more clear-headed situational football. If that holds up, Denver might have just fixed its biggest weakness without spending a single dollar in free agency. Speaking of not spending money, let's talk about why this Broncos roster is so terrifyingly good heading into camp. This is a team that just won 14 games a season ago, and by most reasonable readings of that final controversial replay review against the Colts, probably should have won 15. This is a team that was one broken ankle on their franchise quarterback away from an honest-to-goodness Super Bowl run. And what did this front office do this offseason? They basically ran it back. We are talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 86% of last year's starters returning, which in today's NFL, where cap-strapped teams are gutting rosters left and right, is almost unheard of. The lone marquee addition is an all-pro caliber wide receiver, and adding a true difference maker at that position to an already stacked roster is the kind of move that should make the rest of the AFC nervous. So why isn't Denver getting more respect heading into the season? Why is this team not being treated like the contender the numbers say it clearly is? That, my friends, is one of the great mysteries of this NFL offseason, and it might just be setting the Broncos up for one of the great nobody believed in us runs of the year. But here is the uncomfortable truth lurking underneath all that optimism. This may be the very last year Denver gets to enjoy a roster this deep and this cheap. Once that franchise quarterback situation gets locked into a massive long-term contract, and make no mistake, that is coming, the math around this roster changes overnight. We have all watched other contenders around the league hit that same wall. You pay the quarterback, and suddenly the front office is forced to trade away good players just to stay cap compliant. So enjoy this version of the Broncos while it lasts, because this exact roster, with this exact depth, is not walking through that door again anytime soon. Which brings us to the real meat of the story, the roster battles that are about to get ugly. Denver has at least 4 notable players entering the final year of their contracts, and this front office has a well-earned reputation for locking guys up early with hometown discount extensions rather than letting them hit the open market. So who gets paid, and who gets shown the door? Let's start in the secondary, where things get spicy fast. One veteran cornerback is reportedly staring down a contract number that could push $20 million a year. And that is where things get complicated, because Denver also has a former first-round rookie corner waiting in the wings who is going to want playing time and eventually a big contract of his own. Paying 2 cornerbacks that kind of money is not a sustainable model for very long, which means somebody in that room is either getting moved or is going to have to accept a reduced role. And then there is the wide receiver room, where a talented, dynamic playmaker known for his return ability might actually be the most valuable trade chip on the entire roster. Not because he isn't good, but precisely because he is good enough that another team would surrender real draft capital to acquire him. Especially with this receiver room now overflowing with talent after adding that big free agent name. It is a brutal, business-like sport sometimes, and being productive is not always enough to guarantee your seat at the table. Now let's get to the part of this story that Denver fans really do not want to hear, but need to. There are multiple players on this roster who might not be wearing Broncos colors by the time the season actually kicks off. And the reasons range from performance to something far more serious. Let's start with the most troubling situation. One veteran offensive lineman is reportedly facing legal allegations of a deeply disturbing nature involving violence toward a woman. And if those allegations hold up, there should be zero tolerance in that locker room. Full stop. Talent has never been, and should never be, a good enough excuse to look past that kind of behavior. This front office has some hard decisions ahead, and how they handle it will say a lot about the values of this organization. On a lighter but still consequential note, there is a starting guard whose spot might already have his replacement standing in the draft room, considering the team used draft capital on a lineman who profiles more like insurance at that exact position. There is a beloved backup quarterback who, despite constant fan complaints about his game, is genuinely respected inside the building for knowing his role, being a great teammate, and not causing a single headache. Sometimes being the ultimate professional backup is worth more to a coaching staff than raw talent. And this front office clearly agrees, because he is still cashing a healthy paycheck to hold a clipboard and mentor from the sideline. And then there is a running back who might be fighting for his roster life simply due to a numbers crunch, even after making one of the smartest heads-up audibles of the entire season. During a tense playoff moment against a division rival, this back reportedly recognized a busted fake punt look before the snap and killed the call himself, saving his team from a potential disaster in a game that came down to the final possession. That is the kind of veteran instinct that should count for something in final roster cuts, but with a crowded backfield full of younger, cheaper legs, nothing is guaranteed. And finally, we arrive at the tight end room, which might be the single most fascinating position battle on the entire roster. This has quietly been one of the most disappointing position groups on the team for a couple of years running, and the front office has responded by throwing draft resources at it in back-to-back classes. One name to watch closely is a former college basketball player turned developmental tight end, a converted hooper with legitimate athleticism who has drawn public comparisons from his own head coach to a Hall of Fame tight end who also came over from basketball and turned into a matchup nightmare in the NFL. This kid was on the practice squad late last season and was actually a phone call away from getting activated for a big playoff moment. If he has genuinely taken a leap in camp, do not be shocked if a well-established veteran tight end, one who simply has not lived up to expectations since arriving in Denver, finds himself squeezed out entirely. Nothing personal, just cold, hard roster math. So here is where we land heading into this training camp. The sportsbooks have set the win total for this team at just 9.5 games, and honestly, that number should be considered borderline insulting given everything we just talked about. A team that won 14 games a year ago, brought back the overwhelming majority of its roster, added a true difference maker at receiver. And as running back, a proven fourth-year starting quarterback should not be treated like a coin flip. The realistic floor for this football team is 11 wins. And if they can find a way to get past their toughest divisional rival on Christmas Day, do not be surprised if this team is knocking on the door of 12 wins and a legitimate top seed in the conference. This is a Super Bowl or bust roster, and every single one of these camp battles we just broke down is going to determine whether this team has the depth and the discipline to get there. So there it is, the coaching drama, the contract cliffs, the cut candidates, and the win total that has this entire fan base fired up before a single preseason snap has even been played. Training camp battles like these are exactly why this offseason is one of the most compelling in franchise history, and we are going to be following every single roster move as it happens. If you want to stay ahead of every cut, every contract extension, and every camp battle update the second it breaks, make sure you smash that like button right now. Drop a comment with your prediction for who survives the final roster cuts, and hit subscribe so you never miss a single update from Broncos. We will see you in the